after challenge nutrition. This presentation is going to be about counting macros. If you want to continue to count macros after the challenge is over, this is what you should be doing, and this is where I'm going to teach you what to do with your macros, how to make adjustments, and how to keep going and making it a lifestyle far after the challenge is over. So let's talk about who this is for first. So maybe you're still on the fence of, okay, do I want to count macros or do I want to follow precision nutrition? So this is who it's for, and this is who it's really not for. So if you feel like, hey, you need the increased structure that the macros provided, then this is going to be the system for you. Did you have great success over the course of the challenge? And then if you had great success with it, which probably means it's a system that works well for you, if you want to continue to keep losing or maintaining and basically continuing what you did throughout the 12 weeks, then counting macros is probably going to be your best bet for you. And then how much effort did it take? If you watch the mindset video, I talk about how much effort your habits take and structure takes and all those things. Did it take a ton of effort for you, or were you able to do it with not a ton of perceived effort? And then obviously you can't hate it. Like if you hate counting macros, continuing to do that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then did it become a habit throughout the 12 weeks? Or is it something that you did sometimes and sometimes you didn't do it? You never really formed a good habit. When it's a habit, if you watch the mindset video, it doesn't cost you a lot of energy and it makes it more likely that you're going to continue to do it. So if you meet these criteria, that's who it's for, and I would recommend counting macros. So the challenge is over. Now what? Continued weight loss. So we have two criteria. Continued weight loss. So if you want to lose weight, these are what I would recommend you do with your macros. And then if you want to maintain, I'll recommend what you should do with that as well. And then even further going, okay, I've hit maintenance. Now I want to increase my calorie intake to make it more likely and more sustainable long term. So start off where you left off, okay? So wherever you were at macro-wise, that's probably where you should start at. So whatever your last week macros were, this is where you're going to start. Then each week, or when you hit a plateau or stall out, you're going to make small incremental changes. And I put small, really big, is a lot of people perceive that they have to make these drastic changes. Maybe, you lost a pound and then you didn't lose a pound, and you're stuck. You feel like you're stuck there and you feel like, oh, I got to do something drastic. No, you don't. Small incremental changes make big differences when it comes to losing weight. And two, if you make too drastic of changes, where do you go from there? Like if you cut out, say, 300 calories, 500 calories, and now you're eating 1,000 calories a day, there's nowhere to take you to make progress and nowhere to take you to do it safely. So we want to do small incremental changes when we're making adjustments. Ultimately, if your goal is fat loss, not just weight loss, you should try to continue to lose a half a pound to 2 pounds per week. For our average client, that is the range that you want to be in. If you're doing that, that should be what you consider to be success. And remember, it's fat loss, so don't just judge it off the scale. I want you taking pictures. Maybe it's how your clothes fit. Maybe you want to lose a couple jean sizes. Maybe you want to look better in a bikini. Maybe you want to look better in a bathing suit. Whatever it may be, don't you just use the scale as your only judgment, okay? There are going to be weeks that you don't lose any weight, but you definitely lost body fat. And the only way you're going to be able to see that is if you're tracking in other ways besides just the scale. So don't be the slave to the scale when you're making your adjustments. Yes, you want to see the scale go down, but it's not necessarily required every time you want to make an adjustment, okay? So if you're no longer losing weight, if you're no longer losing inches, you don't see any noticeable progress, that is when you should start making changes, not just when the scale says 0, okay? So to help with that, every 2 to 3 weeks, take progress pictures. Now, the leaner you get, the more often you should actually take your progress pictures. So, if you're starting to get pretty lean, and take your progress pictures maybe once a week or every 2 weeks. The more progress you have to make, then I would recommend every 2 to 3 weeks with your progress pictures. And again, the scale doesn't tell the whole story. The progress report pictures do. You can't hide the pictures, okay? The pictures will tell you everything that you need to do. And I guarantee you, if you continue to take progress pictures and hold yourself accountable with progress pictures, you're going to do what it takes to see the progress in them. The reason we don't take them is because we didn't do what we're supposed to do over the 2 to 3 weeks, and then we avoid the accountability that the pictures provide. So make sure that that's a habit for you, that, you know what, I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to take progress pictures every 2 to 3 weeks. Adjusting macros for success. Okay, so these are the adjustments, and they're very simplistic, very easy to do. We set these adjustments up that, no matter where you're at, you're going to be able to do these. We didn't want to overwhelm you. Often when we're overwhelmed, that leads to inaction, and we definitely want you having a plan, and we definitely want you taking action, okay? So if you've kind of stalled out for 2+ weeks, that's when it's time to make changes. And by stalling out, meaning you didn't lose any weight, you're not losing inches, you're not seeing any noticeable progress, your clothes aren't fitting better, that is the time that, hey, now it's time to make some adjustments. Our body's adapted, we've plateaued. Now how do we get past the plateau? So every adjustment we're going to make, we're just going to reduce our caloric intake by 50 calories. And for some of you, if you know fat loss math, 3,500 calories equals a pound. So how does 50 calories make that big of a difference? When we look at just pure science, it doesn't add up from a number standpoint. But I can tell you right now, you'd be amazed at what 50 calories will do to continue to make progress. So the first adjustment, we're going to adjust your carbs. Your body's going to, keep losing again. And then when it stalls out again, the second adjustment, we're going to reduce 50 calories by fat. And then we're just going to keep repeating this process. It's very simplistic. Fat loss is super simplistic. So don't try to overthink this. Don't think you have to do all these drastic things to continue to lose. You don't have to. Just continue to slowly reduce, and you're going to keep seeing consistent changes. So what does that look like? So in order for us to reduce 50 calories from carbohydrates, we're going to reduce by about 12 grams of carbs. Okay, it's slightly under 50 calories if we want to be exact, but 12 grams of carbohydrates. The second adjustment, so you make that adjustment, you plateau, you stall out, then you're going to reduce your fat intake by 5 grams. Okay, and you're going to do that until you stop seeing results. And then you're going to go back to carbs. And then you're going to do that until you stop seeing results. And then you're going to go back to fat. And you're just going to keep incrementally making these adjustments as needed. Don't just do them every single week because you think you have to. Base it off how you're doing, okay? Base it off how you are doing, and not how you perceive how you're doing in your head, but actual, concrete facts. Weight, inches, body fat, pictures, clothes, all those things matter. If you didn't lose any weight, but your clothes are starting to fit even better, like, you're still making great fat loss progress, right? All right. So where should we take these macros from? Ideally, start reducing from your non-pre and post-workout macros. So ideally, the meals that aren't your pre and post workouts, if you're eating 4 meals a day, that means 2 of your meals aren't pre and post. You'd start with those meals. That's where you'd reduce them from. But overall, it really doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, what matters is your overall caloric intake. If we're reducing that, you're going to continue to see progress. So whatever is easiest for you, don't get overwhelmed with, I need to take them out of what meals, blah, blah, blah. No, just take them out of whatever meals works for you. Now, as we're reducing, and hopefully you don't have to reduce too much, because if you're consistently working out and you're consistently hitting your macros, you shouldn't need weekly adjustments, and you shouldn't be lowering your calories 50 calories every single week. This should be something that's happening every 2 to 3 weeks, okay? So lower limits, like how low can we lower our macros? Carbs, your body can survive off 0 carbs, but if you end up getting that low, honestly, like 4 to 6 weeks is the max. And you should only do that if you're like so close to your goal that, hey, I'm willing to go without carbs for, a few weeks, but it's definitely not a lifestyle, and it shouldn't be something that you have to depend on long term to continue to lose. So only do that if you're like so stinking close to your goal and you're only going to do it for a few weeks, but it's not meant to be something that you do long term. And again, this should be like, it should take you 8 weeks or 10 weeks or 12 weeks to ever consider getting that low and reducing that low. Let's talk about fats. So women, the lowest safe level of dietary fat intake for women is typically 35 grams, and that's counting all fat. So on our program, we count direct macros, right? So you're getting other indirect sources of fats. Your proteins have fats, your carbs have some fats. So you're getting indirect sources. So maybe your plan said, hey, you're eating 40 grams of fat. Those are the direct sources. You're probably also getting 15, 20, 25 grams of indirect fat sources. So the lowest allowed amount counting direct macros for a fat should be 20 to 30 grams. And again, with saying that you're getting a lot of fat from indirect sources. Now, as you get lower in your fat intake, you should additionally supplement with more fish oil or different types of essential fatty acids. It could be krill oil, it could be other things, but make sure you're getting in more essential fatty acids as our fat intake gets lower. And again, this is the lowest limit that I want you to take your fat intake down to is 20 to 30 grams. If you're a smaller person, maybe 20 grams. If you're 150 pounds plus, I wouldn't recommend going anywhere below 25 or 30. So you shouldn't have to get that low or that drastic, but definitely make sure as you do deplete and as you do get lower in your fat intake, I want you to supplementing with additional fatty acids to make sure that you're getting all the required fats that you need. Men, typically the lowest limit is 45 grams when we're counting all macros. So I wouldn't want you to get your fat intake less than 35 grams per day with that. And again, as you get lower, I want you to continue to supplement with even more essential fatty acids. All right, free meals, refeed days. So if this concerns you, don't worry about your refeed days. But instead of having a free meal every 2 weeks, now that you've gone 12 weeks with having it every 2 weeks, I want you to have a free meal every single week. The longer we diet, the more often that we need to have a refeed or days that we increase our caloric supply. And this is going to help keep our metabolism high and help keep our hormones happy, okay? Now, if this doesn't freak you out, ideally, 1 time per month, you would also incorporate a refeed day. Now, your free meals kind of work as a refeed day, but this is more strategic where you're going to have a whole day where you're going to increase your total carbohydrate intake through your macros, not just having a free meal. This is going to increase your leptin levels. When leptin levels are high, your fat burning is going to increase and your hunger hormones are going to decrease as well. So that's a good thing. When leptin is low, which comes from chronic diet or chronic low carbohydrate diets, and leptin is low, your fat burning is going to be lower and your hunger is going to be through the roof, which we don't want. So these refeed days and also your free meals are going to help keep leptin high, keeping your hunger levels lower and keeping your fat burning high. And the longer you diet, the more this is important. If you're very lean and you're very close to your goal, you might need a refeed day every single week or every 2 weeks. And again, if this just feels overwhelming, you're like, oh my God, there's so much information, then don't worry about it. Just have your free meal once a week and you're good to go. But if you decide to do a refeed day, which I would recommend every person listening to this to have it at least 1 time a month, and the closer you get to your goal and the longer you've been quote unquote dieting, the more often this will be needed. So take your normal macros, and I want you to reduce your protein intake and your fat intake by 25%, and you're going to increase your carbs by 50%. So the way that would look like if you had 150 grams of protein, 100 carbs, and 40 grams of fat, say that was your normal macros, that's where they're at right now. Your refeed days, reducing your protein by 25%, you would have 112 grams of protein. Your carbohydrate intake would go up to 150 grams, and then your fat would be reduced by 25%, giving you 30 grams of fat. So your daily caloric intake doesn't change that much, but we're moving your macros around to increase your carbohydrate intake, because carbohydrates have the highest effect on leptin levels and our other fat burning hormones, making sure that our metabolism is healthy and running optimally. Okay, so that is your free meals refeed days. You all should be super excited that you get a free meal every single week. You don't have to wait 2 weeks with that. That is now giving you a little bit more normalcy and making it more of a lifestyle for you. And once you hit your goal, once we get to maintenance, again, maintenance is the hardest part because you're perceptually like the scale's not going down anymore. So you got to set some new goals and some things that you are working towards. So once you hit maintenance, either you can continue to count macros, and we'll talk about reverse dieting and increasing your calorie intake, or you can follow precision nutrition. So if you want to follow precision nutrition, then watch the other video as well. So once we hit our maintenance goal, we're going to reverse diet. And reverse diet just means we're actually just going to increase our caloric intake until you get to a controlled level. So for me, a controlled level is you're not gaining weight or you're not gaining body fat. Maybe the scale does go up because you're eating a little bit more carbohydrates. All that is glycogen retention, which then is water. Okay, so that's why it's important to not freak out what the scale says and look at, okay, my progress pictures and my body fat and all those things that, if the scale goes up and you look better in pictures or you look the same in pictures or your clothes fit the same, don't worry about the scale, okay? But typically not gaining weight, you're controlling your hunger. You don't want it to be, it's going to be very hard to maintain your progress if you are starving and you're hungry all the time. So by that, we're going to increase our caloric intake enough that we have controlled hunger, meaning we're not hungry, we're not starving, we're happy with the amount of food that we're eating on a daily basis. And then our energy levels are good. You don't want it where, hey, I'm going to try to maintain and I'm tired, I'm sluggish, I feel like crap. That's definitely not what we want. We want you having good energy levels by having a good energy supply by the calories that you're eating. So every 2 weeks, just like you did with decreasing your macros and making those adjustments, every 2 weeks, every 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to increase your macro intake. We want to do it slowly. Just like we decrease your calories slowly, we want to increase your calories slower, giving your body and your metabolism time to adapt to those increased calories. You don't want to just add another 500 calories back into your diet. So we're going to slowly add in back 50 calories every couple of weeks. So we're going to increase, first do it just like you did. We're going to do the opposite. You're going to increase your carb intake by 12 grams, your first adjustment. The next couple of weeks, we're going to increase our fat by 5 grams. And then the next couple of weeks, we're going to increase our carbs by 12 grams. And we're just going to keep repeating that process until you get to a happy level of calories where you're not gaining weight, you're controlling your hunger, and your energy levels are great. And then we're going to maintain at that. Now, why do we reverse diet? Why do I need to do this? Again, if you've reduced enough where you hit your goal, but you're hungry and your energy levels suck, like how are you going to maintain on that? You're not going to, and you're going to be amazed at how many calories you can actually maintain on. You can maintain on a lot more calories than what it took for you to lose. So the reverse dieting is going to help you increase your metabolism, making it easier to keep the weight off. If your metabolism's up, you're able to eat more calories. It's going to make it far more likely that you're going to keep the weight off for life, right? It also makes it easier for flexible dieting because the more calorie surplus you have, it's easier to fit in some of your foods. And two, the higher your metabolism is, if you do cheat, if you do get off track, the less damage you're going to have because your metabolism is going to be higher. With that, continue to have your free meal 1 time per week. Again, making it a lifestyle. If you would prefer to have like 2 moderate cheats a week as opposed to just having one cheat per week, work that in. So maybe it's a free meal and a small dessert during the week. Whatever it is, try to make it a lifestyle, something that you can stick with and be consistent with. It's not, hey, I'm cheating 2 times a week and then that turns into 3 and that turns into 4 and that turns into 5. No, it's just being super consistent with it. And ultimately, once you get into maintenance mode, you can eat more than you think, okay? You still need to track and set monthly goals. just because you're in maintenance mode doesn't mean that you don't need to track, doesn't mean you don't need to hold yourself accountable, and it doesn't mean you do not need to set monthly goals. Again, progress equals motivation, and now you're losing the motivation of the scale going down. So you need to have things that you continuously are trying to achieve, no matter if you're trying to lose weight or maintain your weight. All right, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that helps everyone who is trying to count macros, and you have a game plan moving forward.